Prologue. The Discovery, Los Angeles, January 15th, 1947. The morning light was still pale, a hazy winter sun trying to burn through the smog that clung to the city. On the southern edge of Limert Park, in a vacant lot near South Norton Avenue, a young mother pushing a stroller stopped suddenly. At first, she thought she was looking at a discarded mannequin. It lay in the grass, perfectly bisected at the waist. The skin was a chalky white, drained of all color, as if the figure had been made of porcelain. The mouth was slashed grotesquely, pulled into a chilling permanent smile that cut almost ear to ear. The mother gasped, clutching her child closer. What she was looking at wasn't a doll, it was a woman. The police arrived quickly, their squad cars drawing curious onlookers from nearby houses. Reporters followed soon after, tipped off by the Everlakey channels of the Los Angeles Police Department. What they found would go down as one of the most gruesome and perplexing murders in American history. The victim was a young woman in her early 20s. She had been drained of blood, her body scrubbed clean and positioned with deliberate care. The mutilations were surgical in precision. Whoever had done this was not just a killer. He had been making a statement. The press would give her a name that became infamous: the Black Dahlia. Her real name was Elizabeth Short. And in that instant, she was transformed from a struggling young woman with dreams of Hollywood stardom into a symbol of violence, of mystery, of the darkness hiding beneath the glamorous sheen of Los Angeles. Elizabeth, a life before. The headlines. Elizabeth Short was born on July 29, 1924, in the working-class town of Medford, Massachusetts. She was the third of 5 daughters to Cleo and Phoebe Short. Life during her early years was modest, but comfortable enough. Her father built miniature golf courses, and for a time, the family seemed secure. That security shattered in 1929, when the Great Depression hit. Business collapsed. One day, Cleo Short's car was found abandoned near a bridge, and the authorities assumed he had taken his own life. For Elizabeth, only 5 years old at the time, it meant growing up in a home without a father. Phoebe was left to raise 5 girls on her own, scraping by on odd jobs and assistance. Elizabeth, with her raven-black hair and pale skin, was already striking as a child. She suffered from asthma and chronic lung problems, leading doctors to recommend that she spend winters in a warmer climate. From the age of 16, she divided her time between Massachusetts and Florida, where she stayed with family friends and enjoyed the sun-drenched lifestyle that contrasted so starkly with her New England upbringing. Those who knew Elizabeth described her as dreamy, romantic, and always chasing something larger than life. She loved the movies, the silver-screen goddesses who seemed to float above ordinary concerns. She imagined herself in that world, not stuck in a small town, not confined by poverty. By her late teens, Elizabeth was already developing the habits that would define her social reputation: a taste for fashionable clothing she couldn't always afford, a love of nightlife, and a tendency to captivate men with little more than her presence. Friends said she seemed mysterious, even when she wasn't trying to be. In 1942, when Elizabeth was 18, a startling revelation arrived in the mail. Her father, Cleo Short, was alive. He had never died at all. Instead, he had faked his suicide and disappeared, eventually settling in California. The betrayal shocked Elizabeth, but also drew her westward. She would soon follow him to the state that had been glittering in her imagination for years. California, land of Hollywood, where dreams were made. A move to Los Angeles. Elizabeth arrived in California during the height of World War II. Los Angeles at that time was a city of contradictions. It was booming with defense industry jobs, crowded with servicemen, and pulsing with an undercurrent of vice. Hollywood glittered, but crime and corruption simmered just below the surface. She lived for a time with her estranged father in Vallejo, but their reunion soured quickly. Cleo disapproved of her habits, her late nights, her tendency to draw male attention without offering commitment, her unwillingness to settle into domestic routine. They quarreled constantly until she left his house, determined to make her own way. Elizabeth drifted between jobs, waitressing, working in theaters, and occasionally modeling. None of it paid well. She often relied on the generosity of men she met. Servicemen, businessmen, would-be producers. To them, she was enchanting. Her jet-black hair styled in loose curls, her green eyes striking against her fair skin, her red lipstick carefully applied. She had a way of standing out in a crowd, of seeming just a little untouchable. But behind the allure, Elizabeth was perpetually broke, moving from one rented room to another, sometimes even couch-hopping when money ran thin. She dreamed of becoming an actress, but she had no connections, no real training, and no foothold in the competitive industry. Still, she told friends she was destined for stardom. She cultivated the aura of mystery, earning nicknames from acquaintances. In Long Beach, where she sometimes lived, people called her Beth. Others knew her as Betty or Liz. But it was the press, years later, who would dub her the Black Dahlia, inspired partly by the 1946 film, The Blue Dahlia, and partly by her penchant for wearing dark clothing and sheer black dresses when she went out at night. By late 1946, Elizabeth Short was just another pretty young woman lost in the sprawl of Los Angeles, chasing a dream that always seemed a step out of reach. What she didn't know was that she had only weeks left to live. The final days. The holiday season of 1946 was not kind to Elizabeth. She had been drifting again, staying briefly with acquaintances, trying to secure work. On January 8, 1947, she was seen in San Diego with a man named Robert "Red" Manley, a salesman she had been dating casually. He later told police that she was nervous, moody, and seemed to be running from something, though he couldn't say what. On January 9th, Manley dropped her off at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. Elizabeth told him she was meeting her sister there. Hotel staff recalled seeing her use the lobby telephone, waiting for someone. What happened after that remains one of the enduring mysteries of the case. Elizabeth vanished. For nearly a week, no one could account for her movements. Did she stay with friends? Did she fall in with dangerous company? Police investigations would later uncover scattered sightings. Someone thought they saw her in a nightclub. Another claimed she had been at a party. But none of these accounts were certain. What is certain is that by the early morning of January 15th, her life had been cut short in a manner so grotesque that the city would never forget it. The crime scene detective Harry Hansen was among the first investigators on the scene that morning. Even for seasoned officers, the sight was staggering. The victim's body had been drained completely of blood, leaving her skin an unnatural, ghostly white. She had been cut cleanly in half at the waist, a rare and difficult procedure known as a hemicorporectomy. The precision of the cut suggested surgical knowledge. The face was mutilated into a grotesque mask. Her thighs and breasts bore signs of deliberate mutilation. The body had been scrubbed, washed of fingerprints, and placed carefully in the lot, as though on display. The positioning was deliberate, arms raised, legs spread, torso angled to catch the eye of anyone passing by. This was not a hurried disposal. It was a performance. By the time the coroner examined her, the brutality became even clearer. Elizabeth Short had endured hours of torture before death. The cause was determined to be blows to the head, coupled with shock and blood loss from the extensive injuries. The press descended on the case like vultures. Within a day, the Los Angeles Examiner coined the nickname the Black Dahlia, playing off her known style, and the recent film noir, The Blue Dahlia. The name stuck. It was sensational, cinematic, perfect for headlines. Elizabeth Short, a woman who had dreamed of becoming famous in Hollywood, was now infamous, not for her acting, not for her beauty, but for the horrifying way she had been murdered.